Good day, minions. I'm about to try and teach you how to fly helicopters in Battlefield 3 so you don't look like this guy. First things first, let's talk about what the controls do. This is a diagram from an RC helicopter, which is exactly how the Battlefield 3 helicopters control. So let's get right to it here. Let's start with the left stick, which is the yaw control as well as your, okay, it's almost the same because this doesn't have your elevation control. The left and right triggers have that. So ignore G and H, and let's talk about the left stick. The left stick is how you point your chopper the way you want to go. So that's B and A. That's your yaw, left and right. So similarly to how the airplane flies, this points your nose, except with a chopper, that doesn't necessarily imply that you have any forward momentum while you're doing it. So left and right will yaw your helicopter left and right on a flat plane, as you see from the arrows A and B there. E and F, up and down on the right stick, are pitch, and that will be how you move the helicopter forward, backward, or stabilize it to hold still. So with a helicopter, the rotors pull you up. Like, that's kind of the idea, right? So in order to go forward in a helicopter, you have to have the rotors producing lift, and you have to tilt the helicopter forward. So it's essentially pulling you forward when you tilt the nose down. And when you tilt the nose up, it will pull you backwards. So so that's different from how an aircraft controls. You put a nose down on an aircraft, you go down, you pull back, it goes up. A helicopter, all that does is tilt the nose. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to move forward and backwards depending on how your rotor is going. But that is your pitch control. Right stick, left and right, will be your roll control. And this is what kills new pilots. Because when your aircraft starts to get out of shape and unstable, left and right are how you balance the helicopter to keep it level, so that it doesn't, like, so you get in a chopper, right, and you pull that right trigger so that it starts to take off, and it starts to pitch to one side as you turn, and you don't know what to do, and it just turns over on its side and slams into the ground. That's because you didn't manage the roll control the way you needed to. And it sounds very complicated, but I'm going to break it down with some video clips and show you that if you get your mindset right, you can get it under control and actually get it figured out. So let's get some clips rolling, and I'll talk some more about the finer points of flying a chopper as we get to that. Okay, I've got a lot of footage lined up here, so we'll start out with the simple concepts of flying, and we'll get into the more advanced stuff later on. It's going to be a decently long video. Maybe you guys don't mind. We'll see. I'm relatively familiar with helicopters from playing a bunch of Battlefield 2, and that was kind of a pain because I used to fly it with a keyboard and mouse. So it used to be up, down, left, right, and the mouse to fly choppers for me. So I had the basics of it down, and I played quite a few console games in my day that are RC helicopter games, and that's how you fly this chopper. So let's get started. If you want to start learning how to fly a helicopter, you don't want to immediately jump in and try to start doing the stuff you're really going to see me do here. So initially, let's think of this footage starting out as a kind of background eye candy. I'll get to some actual stuff later, but this first video is just me flying a transport chopper around a little bit to drop some buddies off. So yeah, the first thing you want to do when you want to learn how to fly a chopper, right? So is not crash, and that sounds really obvious, right? Well, when you're starting out, don't try and get too much at once. So the first thing I want you to do when you're learning how to fly the chopper is get in it. Don't touch any of the analog sticks and just pull on that right trigger, and that's going to get you some altitude, right? So get used to getting your helicopter off the ground. So baby steps, right? And you'll probably piss off some teammates, but unfortunately there's no private match to play in, so that's all right. But if you do what I'm saying, you won't piss them off so much because you flip the chopper over and crash. Hopefully, they should just get bored and run away. So after you've been practicing with your throttle a little bit, just getting the aircraft up in the ground, up off the ground, kind of get used to what it feels like to feather it to maintain some altitude, go up and down a few times, giggity, and just kind of get used to that whole thing. Then start working in a little bit of the yaw, and what that's going to do is get you used to the balance of the helicopter. And what I mean by balance is, as the helicopter yaws to one side or the other, it's also going to roll the opposite direction. So let me explain to you a little bit what you want to do. Get your helicopter to decent altitude, not real high, but not so low that it's going to crash into the ground. And start to, just for example, yaw left. So left on the left stick, and the nose of your helicopter will start to turn left. And if you start to do that faster, then you'll notice that as you're yawing left, your helicopter will roll to the right. And this is what gets new pilots. Is as you're yawing, your helicopter starts to tilt over the opposite direction, and you don't know how to correct for it, or you overcorrect. So either you just mash around on the right stick, or more likely, when you start to see the helicopter go over, you're going to hammer on that right trigger, right? So you're going to hammer on the throttle, and all that's going to do is accelerate how fast you're going to roll over on your side. So you'll start yawing left, and you'll start to roll to the right, and you'll just roll into the ground. So what you need to do is you need to roll in the direction that you're yawing. So if you're yawing left, roll to the left. So move the right stick to the left to counter that roll. And that's going to be how you balance your helicopter, right? So using the throttle to keep it where you're going, and as you're pointing the left stick where you want to go, you're moving the roll, the right stick, left or right with it to keep your helicopter balanced. So to start out practicing with that, get some altitude while you're holding in place. So don't move the right stick up or down. Just kind of hover in place and start to yaw to the left, and notice that roll and try to slowly counter it with the right stick. And this will get you moving around a little bit. But when you feel comfortable enough with that, then start to get a little bit more altitude. Push up on the right stick to put your nose down, and that will start pulling your helicopter forward. And you're going to have to start using that throttle to keep your altitude. Because as you nose down, if you don't throttle up, you will start to lose altitude. But start practicing as you're moving forward, using the left stick to point your front of your helicopter where you want it to go, and then balancing with the right stick. So you're yawing left and you're rolling left just a little bit to keep it balanced. And once you kind of get the feel for what it's like to counter the roll with the right stick, that's pretty much it. That's the hardest part. That's what gets everybody, is the roll. So once you've got that down, then it's just a matter of practice. And it's not going to be real easy to get that balance down. Like I said, I played a bunch of console games that were like RC Chopper Sims. And it takes a while to get your brain used to that to where it's kind of instinctive. But you can kind of do the basics, right? So you can get the helicopter up, you can get it moving forward, and you can keep yourself from turning over on your side, and everything else after that. Or if you clip your tail root on a tree like I did here, you can learn how to bail out and run away. So that's the basics of flight, and that's what you're really going to need to master, is the roll control. That is the key. If you can master roll control, which is a fun thing to say, then you're pretty much golden, because the rest is just throttle and pointing where you want to go. So here we're going to get into some basic flight that I'm doing here. And an interesting point about choppers, where I'm going to actually use this chopper to help assist capture a point in Conquest. So here, if you click in the right stick, you will go to this third-person view, which is, I find, useful for when you're going to be maneuvering near obstacles, like I tried to do when I hit that tree, but like I'm doing here to try and keep from flying into those buildings. So this is actually more of a precision move than it looks like. It looks kind of like a hover, but for those of you that have tried to fly a chopper a little bit, you'll notice that helicopters don't just hover like that. So I'm constantly tweaking the pitch up and down of the nose of the helicopter and the roll left and right to keep me steady. And this clip doesn't last real long because I start getting shot down. But that also is a helpful thing to notice. So here I start getting an idea. Maybe I can move over to B. And notice here when I start to turn, as the helicopter's rolling to the right, you can use that to direct your chopper a little more quickly. And then watch as I turn up here, because I'm going to do a hard right yaw, and I'm rolling right at the same time. So see how the helicopter stays nice and steady? That's because I was rolling hard right as I was yawing hard right. And that'll keep you steady. And that's how you do fast turns, as a tank shoots at you. And here you'll see a little bit of left trigger as I'm pulling my helicopter down with the throttle to try and get behind buildings and keep from getting locked on, but you'll see my success is limited. An interesting thing to note about most vehicles, and I'm pretty certain about this just from experience, when your vehicle is at 50% or above, so 51% to be safe, right? Your helicopter will repair itself if you don't take any more damage. When it's at 50 or 49% and below, if you don't have, I think, the fire extinguisher specialization unlocked for it, it will, or if someone's not repairing you. That in that first clip, if you'll go back, you'll see that I damaged the chopper below 50, but Caboose was in there repairing it for me. Unless someone's repairing it, once your vehicle, and this is for all vehicles, I think, but especially jets and helicopters, once it gets damaged below 50%, it's going to start burning up, and it's in essentially what's called disabled mode, where it's in the process of crashing, and you've got a little control to get it where you need to before you bail out. So let's watch some Little Bird gameplay here, and you'll see this is later on than the first couple clips I posted. So I'm a lot more comfortable in the chopper. So even though I had previous experience, you'll notice that my my proficiency with the chopper increased pretty quickly just from getting used to the feel of it. And plus, I think of all the choppers I've flown, this Little Bird is the easiest to fly just because it responds really quickly. So as long as it can be very punishing in that respect. So if you start to roll and you don't know what to do, it can roll over very quickly. But if you know what you're doing, it's really easy to correct. And here I'm already taking lock, and you'll see me use a lot of evasive action here to stay behind buildings whenever I'm in danger of lock. Now, I do at this point have the IR flares unlocked, which you will unlock fairly early when you get a little experience with the choppers. By the time you're ready to start doing anything like this, you should have them unlocked. And this is a scout helicopter, as we found out in one of my earlier videos. Not an attack helicopter, so you'll have to unlock those separately. But right bumper will drop your IR flares, and I'll give you a little bit of a tip about when to use those, essentially. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing what the tones mean. As my teammate just bails out of that chopper and lets it crash. Let's start with the Little Bird here. The gun action I'm doing here. You'll notice the two crosshairs in the screen, and the first one with the dot in the middle, the smaller crosshair, is the direction your chopper is heading. But the larger crosshair without the dot in the middle is actually your gun reticle. So your gun will shoot slightly lower than the angle of your chopper's movement, right? Which is a good thing. That makes the gun runs in the Little Bird a little bit easier to do. Here you see I'm trying to evade lock on. It's a good time to talk about it. When you hear the rapid beeping, that means you're being tracked. When you hear a solid tone, and this is for the Little Bird, I think for some choppers, it's different for aircraft. When you hear the solid tone, that means there's been a missile launch. And right as there's a missile launch, or maybe very shortly thereafter, but you don't wait too long, that's when you'll want to hit right bumper and launch your flares, because that will distract that missile. But, and I haven't been able to test it completely with using the stealth attachment, but just as a rule of thumb, keep in mind that once you've blown your flares, the enemy will be able to lock onto you again faster than your flares will respawn. And by respawn, you'll see in the Little Bird, it's at the top left corner, it says IR flares ready. When you hit your flares, that will switch to IR flares wait. And you'll have to wait for your IR flares to regenerate before you can use them again. So it just keeps people from spamming them and being invincible. And here's going to be well, not yet. Here I'm taking damage, so I'm trying to keep myself out of order. But anyway, back to what I was saying. You have to wait for those IR flares to regenerate. And when they reload, they also make an audible sound, kind of like a clunking sound, so you'll know that they're ready to go again. But essentially, once you've hit your flares once, you'll want to get your helicopter away from whoever's targeting you, either by putting it behind an obstacle like a mountain or a building, or just by getting distance beyond which they can lock onto you, until your flares at least regenerate. And here I'm doing kind of a stupid move. I wasn't sure how much damage the Little Bird gun would do to an armored vehicle, and that is an anti-air armored vehicle. So I bugged out pretty quick, but you'll see I go back and try and pick a fight with it. These next two clips are Little Bird clips on this map from different games. And you'll see that both times I'm done in by screwing around with the anti-air vehicle. So don't do that, because you can't really damage them enough with the guns and they can screw you up pretty quick. So here you see my ire flares are in wait mode because I just used them, and I'm still getting locked. I'm not quite sure where from, but I'm trying to put myself in a position where a missile's less likely to hit me. So this big old building's between me and the end, and who I think may be locking me on. So, so that's important. Like, that's part of the kind of using what you learn about flying a chopper to your advantage, right? Being able to duck in behind buildings, you know, like here I'm taking fire again all the way across the map from that anti-air armor. This is where I'm starting to get a little impatient with it because I know my teammates aren't going to take it out. And so I'm thinking maybe I can do something about it. So I'm using cover to try and get my my health back for my chopper here. So so that kind of goes along with what I said. When your helicopter's below 50%, it'll start burning up. But when it's above 50%, if you stop taking damage, it will automatically repair itself, which is magical. But yeah, here I'm I'm thinking about causing some trouble. But yeah, going back to reiterating the minor points here, I got a little too ambitious with that. And here's the fun thing. It's like, oh, good, I escaped. And I turn around. What is that? Oh, no! So don't stand next to the burning vehicle you just escaped from, or it will explode and kill you. As I'm lamenting in the lobby right now. Next clip, this is a different game. Same little bird, same map. I use this as an example because it's the most fun I have, and dodging these locks is I think some of the, I don't want to say best piloting you'll see, but it's more than just getting up in the air and doing gun runs until you get shot down. This is being survivable in a helicopter. So, so I spend 10 minutes at a time in a chopper, and not just tooling around either. You'll see that I'm getting kills with this thing. It's actually, I think the Little Bird right now is my #2 vehicle behind the tank. So I get some work done with it, and I'm pretty effective with the Little Bird gun. So I have a little more trouble with like the attack choppers and the rockets. They do less damage than this minigun does. So it's a little tougher to deal with. But I'm looking forward to get some more unlocks. I haven't unlocked like the AGM missiles or anything like that for the attack choppers. There I unlocked the air-to-air heat-seeking missile for Little Bird. But yeah, notice as I'm taking these really tight turns, it looks like it's really simple, right? Like I'm just yawing around. But every time you yaw hard to one direction, you've got to roll in that direction too. So I'm turning left here. I'm yawing right. Yawing right hard. So I'm rolling right hard to keep the helicopter upright. And that's all there is to it. Then the rest is just throttle control and keeping your nose so that it doesn't push you into a wall or something. I keep reiterating that, but that's the basic fundamental of flying a helicopter. You almost want your left stick to mirror your right stick in the left-right direction, if that almost makes sense. So if you move your left stick to the left, move your right stick to the left as much as you are. So if you move it slightly left, move it slightly left on the right stick. See my flares jumping out there as they're waiting to respawn. Once you do that, essentially flying a helicopter becomes a lot more trivial. And like I said, you'll kind of have to focus your brain on keeping the chopper upright. You know, you're focusing on the left and right stick, keeping the chopper upright, and then you're kind of instinctually running the throttle and stuff like that. So if you do that, then you can get better control of a chopper. And it can tear up light vehicles like you see there, like Humvees and stuff like that will get eaten up by this gun. But anything armored like a tank or anti-air, not so effective with the guns. You know, as you would expect. But yeah, here, you know, a lot of maneuverability, and the choppers all are pretty much capable of this. Like, you can take a hard turn in any chopper and keep it upright, as long as you stay on that right stick. So yeah, what else can we talk about here? Some more advanced. I'm not claiming to be an expert flying the chopper, but as you can see here, I can get it around pretty well. So I'll try and give you what tips I have. So what else can I say here? How about more of a philosophical tip here? If you're in a vehicle, let's stick it to helicopters since that's what this video is about. If you're in a helicopter, you should be doing one of two things. The first is if it's a transport helicopter, like I was flying at the beginning of this video, you should be either transporting, well, mainly what you should be doing is transporting your teammates to the objectives, and either getting high enough so they can jump out and parachute safely, or getting in low and landing so they can hop out. That's a lot more difficult to do. Even I don't really do that. I typically fly over the objective and tell them to bail out. But you should either be doing that, or you should be directly supporting attacks on the objective, like I am here. So I'm trying to focus the targets I'm shooting at near the objectives we're pushing on, and then getting targets of opportunity as they arise. So I'm not flying around just looking for anyone to shoot. I'm trying to stay close to the objective we're supporting and killing people around there to give my teammates an opportunity to get in there. And this little bird would be effective as a transport chopper as well. If people wanted to jump in, I could fly them over and drop them off. But stuff like the Viper, the Cobra, I don't even know if they officially changed. Anyway, the attack choppers are not as good for that purpose. They are specifically for attacking. And I haven't been real effective with the rockets in those things. So I'm not even sure really how effective they are against armor. I've killed a few people with the Cobra, the AH-1. I've killed a few people with rockets on that. But the gunner seat, the gun on that is pretty effective, especially shooting down other aircraft. But yeah, what you want to be doing in vehicles is always supporting the objective. So there's too many people that hop in an aircraft and just feel like screwing around and doing whatever, flying around and just trying to see what fun they can have in it. But you can, if you're good enough in a vehicle, you should be able to use it to support the objective. Here you'll see I'm taking cover trying to get my health regen on this chopper again. You can actually support the objective. So you should either be directly supporting the objective by taking teammates there, or indirectly supporting the objective by taking out, first priority is armor if you can. Second priority is infantry, especially infantry near the objective and near your teammates. And then the third priority kind of is distraction, right? So if you've got the enemy looking up in the air for you, they're not looking down at the ground for your teammates. So once you've learned this great power, being able to fly choppers effectively, don't use it for evil. Use it to help your team win games. And I'm trying to remember. I think the 2 games I took these clips out of, we may have lost the first one and may have won this one. I can't remember, but here's a simple fact. When you're in a vehicle, you will be less effective at helping your team complete the objectives, regardless of how good you are in it, than you will be on the ground. And that's just a fact. So by being in this chopper, I am hurting my team. I could be doing more on the ground, planning objectives and killing enemies, than I'm doing in this helicopter. But by being in it, I get to do a couple of things. 1 is have fun. 2 is keep it out of the hands of a teammate who's just going to fly it into the ground, which could be even worse. And 3 is to help distract the other team. And that's key because it's really hard to focus when jets and helicopters are flying around murdering you from the air. And you'll end up trying to spawn in as an engineer, and here I go picking on this freaking anti-air again like a moron and getting myself. Both these times you'll notice I start picking on the anti-air, and I don't directly get shot down by it. I end up screwing myself over getting too aggressive with it. Like here I try some insane over-the-top maneuver over the shed to get a good gun run on it, and I slam right into that. I rolled too hard to the left. I shouldn't have rolled left. And damage is at 50, and I'm like, okay, that can recover, so I'll try to get to cover, but then from somewhere, I take a couple more points of damage, and there you'll see it start to bleed away. So now I know it's going down. That's the time to try and survive. Ideally try and get your helicopter towards an objective and bail out there so you can help support the objective on the ground, or just try and survive. So that's kind of the basics of flying a chopper. I hope you guys have some success, and I hope that was useful. See you guys later.